A low-carb diet is what it sounds like. It is a diet in which you reduce the number of grams of carbohydrates that you consume during the day. But what does that mean? How many carbohydrates does a regular diet contain? And how low must you go to be considered low-carb or keto? And do you count total carbs or net carbs? I explain low-carb dieting and what it means and doesn't mean in this video. Carbohydrates are mainly found in plant foods because plants are the living organisms that make carbohydrates through photosynthesis. So grains, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, and seeds all contain carbohydrates. Only a few animal-based foods contain a significant amount of carbohydrates, with dairy products like milk and yogurt being the main ones. However, just because plant and milk-based foods contain carbohydrates doesn't mean that they are off limits for a low-carb dieter. You just have to understand the hierarchy of carbohydrate-containing foods so that you can focus your diet on those with the lowest amount of carbs and the best fiber-to-carb ratio. And some generalities can help you rank carbohydrates. First, of all of the plant foods available to us, non-starchy vegetables are the best choice for low-carb dieters. These are foods like leafy salad greens, broccoli, cauliflower, and asparagus. They are naturally low in calories and carbs, but they have a lot of volume and nutrients like fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So they fill up your stomach, they are good for you, and they digest slowly, helping to keep hunger away. And then one step down in the hierarchy of low-carb plant foods, we find starchy vegetables like potatoes and corn, along with fruits, nuts and seeds, beans, grains, and oats. And when I say that they are a step down, I'm referring only to the fact that they contain more carbohydrates than non-starchy vegetables. It doesn't mean that they are unhealthy. In fact, for many people, a variety of nutritious whole foods can be worked into a well-formulated low-carb diet. It is when these whole foods get refined and processed that they lose their low-carb friendly status. So at the bottom of the dietary carbohydrate ranking, we find sugar, refined grains like cereal, cookies, and bread, as well as soda and other sweetened drinks. Now, when we consider unprocessed dairy products, generally speaking, the higher the fat content, the lower the food's carbohydrate content. For instance, 2 tablespoons of heavy cream contains almost 11 grams of fat, but less than 1 gram of carbohydrates, whereas 2 tablespoons of skim milk has no fat, but nearly double the carb count. We also see that dairy foods that are naturally higher in fat, like cheese, tend to be low in carbs, so it's not uncommon to have cheese included in low-carb recipes. However, this rule does not hold up for high-fat dairy desserts like ice cream because they add sugar, which is a carbohydrate. So dairy products hierarchy would have high-fat foods like cheese and full-fat yogurt and cream as top choices, followed by low or no-fat milk products, and finally milk-based desserts like ice cream. Now, with a picture of what types of foods contain carbohydrates in our head, the next question is, how many carbs can I eat and still be on a low-carb diet? Well, there's no established cutoff point, but it's generally accepted that a low-carb diet is one in which you consume no more than 125 grams of total carbs per day. To be considered keto, your daily consumption must drop down under 50 grams per day. And since the standard dietary recommendations for carbs are more than 225 grams, the average person will need to cut their carb intake by at least half to be considered low carb. And some factors will play into how many carbohydrates your body can tolerate and still lose weight. And these things would include things like your age, activity level, and how taxed your metabolism is due to factors like obesity, health conditions, or a history of yo-yo dieting. So you will have to experiment to find the level of carbohydrates that's right for you. And this does not mean that you need to go directly from your high carb lifestyle to a very low carb keto diet right away. But it does mean that you need to track your carb intake. And tracking can be done with a pencil and a sheet of paper, but there are many free apps out there that will help you, such as Chronometer, which is where the nutritional information that I'm sharing in this video comes from. And this brings us to an area of controversy with low-carb dieting, which is, what do you track? Total carbohydrates or net carbs? As low-carb dieting grows in popularity, you find more and more proponents for counting net carbohydrates. But if you choose to do that, I do want to bring your attention to the different ways in which net carbs are tallied for different foods. If the carbohydrates you are consuming are solely from vegetables, fruits, and other whole food sources, then net carbs are fine to count, and the equation is simple. In the case of whole foods, net carbs are calculated by subtracting the fiber from the total carbs. So if at the end of the day you consume 75 total grams of carbohydrates, but 15 of those grams were fiber, then you consumed 60 net carbs for the day. It's really simply just a choice of how you want to look at it. However, if you include packaged or processed foods into your low-carb diet, additional subtractions apply, namely sugar alcohols and allulose. And the challenge is that this extra math opens up the door to deception, which can prevent you from getting the weight loss benefits that you're looking for with a low-carb diet. Sugar alcohols and allulose can be added to foods to make them sweeter and improve their crave factor and texture. They are metabolized differently than other food nutrients. Therefore, they have less of an impact on your blood sugar than the sugar that they are replacing. So for the most part, the carbs they contain get to be subtracted from the total carb count. And that sounds like a great way to game the system, literally getting to eat your sweet treat without the high carb consequences. But does it seem to be too good to be true? I think so, which is why I do count total carbs, not net carbs. So let's take a look at an example. This double chocolate cake mix from Duncan Hines is labeled as keto friendly and has only 5 net carbs. It sure looks delicious, but when we look at the nutritional facts, you see that it started out with 34 total carbs. Now, I don't think Duncan Hines is lying when they say that this only has 5 net carbs, but they accomplish a large portion of this 29 carb drop by making allulose the first and therefore most prominent ingredient. So despite having no added sugar, this is a very sweet dessert packed with 300 calories. That sweetness will keep your sweet tooth alive, making it harder to stick with your diet when faced with future temptations, and the calories could easily derail your weight loss. Now, I certainly understand the draw of sweet foods. As I like to say, when I struggled with my weight, I had a terrible sweet tooth, and I have the cavities to prove it. But you don't need to game the system with fake sweets to enjoy a low-carb diet. When you remove the excess carbs from your day, you replace many of them with satisfying, healthy fats, including foods that were once thought to be taboo, like butter and high-quality meats and cheese. And this macronutrient swap leads to some noticeable advantages. Unlike carbohydrates, fats do not spike the fat-storing hormone called insulin. Fats also digest slower than carbohydrates, so they stay in your system longer, supplying you with a steady, sustainable energy source that keeps hunger away and helps you to naturally eat less. Also, fats are not sweet, so they don't stimulate your sweet tooth, which helps to quiet cravings, making it easier for you to stick with your diet until you reach your goal. Now, if you are here watching this video, it is likely because you are curious about low-carb diets. In many ways, low-carb diets have changed the face of dieting for many people. Not only do they report feeling good when they eat low-carb, but they also feel lucky to have discovered the diet. I believe this is because low-carb diets fulfill what I refer to as the 3 E's, meaning the diet is easy to follow, enjoyable, and effective. It's easy to follow because as long as you are tracking your carb intake, you are on the right track. It's enjoyable because there are so many savory and delicious foods to choose from, and it is effective for weight loss. On my website, drbeckyfitness.com, I offer plans and 21-day challenges that are built on these 3 E's. I invite you to check out them on my website, as well as my free 0123 strategy that serves as a great pathway into healthy low-carb dieting. I hope you join my channel by clicking the subscribe button before you go. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.